Diversity, I think, is just all the different kinds of identities that people have. People have lots of different ways that they think about themselves, that they identify themselves, whether it's racial, ethnic identities, religious identities, sexual identities, gender identities, and even identities of where you live geographically, whether you're from an urban place or a rural place. I think that there's just a lot of all the different groups that we belong to give us all these different identities, and looking at all of them as a whole picture is what diversity is all about.
Diversity isn't just about skin color, culture. It's about, we're all different. We all have differences, but we also all have similarities.
Diversity doesn't mean just the race, different color. So for me, what it means is different culture that you bring. So of course, if you are from different place or different culture, or you have different race or something, you're going to bring a different culture, different tradition and all that thing. So I think like bringing a different culture, bringing different things together, that's diversity for me.
Enjoy learning about the international students that come through here, their culture and their history and their beliefs. I also love learning about the different diversity of students that we have here. Yes, you may be from Nebraska, you may be from a farming family, but I don't know that much about farming, so it's just interesting for me to learn about everyone.
I learned English when I was like first grade, I started, but all those grammars and everything. But when I got here, nothing worked because no one could understand me at all. I used to say what all the time, and I used to do the same thing with them because I couldn't understand what they were trying to say. So it took, I would say, about a year to grasp that accent, and I'm still trying to learn to pronounce some words or trying to communicate better. But it's an ongoing process. But I think it took me about a year to grasp the accent and everything.
I think in the Midwest, we sometimes don't think that there's as much diversity as there is. I think that there's certainly more out there. And there are a lot of pockets. In North Dakota especially, we have a lot of people who come from different areas of Europe who really hold on to their old customs and their old cultures and sometimes their language. We have a big community in North Dakota of Germans from Russia. And they are different from Germans, and they have different kind of cultural traditions, very different food, and they're very active in sort of promoting it and letting people know about it. And so I think there is some of that out there, but I think, the bigger urban centers, you get more opportunities to really kind of taste different foods and experience different festivals and just be part of a lot more. And that's why universities, I think, are very good. If you have like an international program, you get to bring in students and they can tell you about their culture and really kind of help with that.
Basically, it's been kind of a more of a social kind of a group for people to come together and to talk about differences and acceptance and to be supportive of one another, especially since in some cases individuals have not been necessarily supported in their family situation or in their previous or in their school situations, and so it's an opportunity. It's been social, but I think the group has been evolving as well to begin to look at social political kinds of ramifications, and that's pretty exciting. We've kind of matured and there's more acceptance on campus. And
I think that for a group, we're very open and accepting of anyone who is different in sense of whether it's your culture, your sexual orientation, your gender, anything like that. We're very open and willing to work and meet with new people and just get a different aspect of what their life's like.
The whole basis of our group is like based on diversity. That's what we really look for when we don't really recruit people, but when we try to get new members to join, we like if they aren't like everybody else, they have different qualities and aspects of their lives that most of us don't know or we can relate to.
people just come from all walks of life, and they're people of different ethnicities, and yeah, it's just really, I think it's intentional. We're pretty intentional about accepting people for who they are.
Diversity has changed because a lot of groups are getting bigger and bigger, like the Latino population. Native Americans are being heard more. There's a group called I'll No More who is fighting for their land in Canada. They're just being heard. People are being educated more about diversity. People are asking questions about different cultures rather than just ignoring them or just watching and not finding out about how things really are. They have those stereotypes from the past. But a lot nowadays people are just educating themselves. And I think it'll get better in the future. People will want to learn more. They won't be afraid to ask because different groups will be more welcoming.
I think we're much, as a culture, like the United States, we're much more willing to talk about it, and we're willing to explore all the complexities of diversity. I think that we've kind of gone sort of one by one, and we've looked at single identities. And so we had, middle 20th century, we had the civil rights movement and the women's movement, and then the gay and lesbian rights movement. And we have all these individual identity movements that sort of emerged during that time, the second half of the 20th century. And then it's really, since then, it's been about looking at the way that people have many different identities. And so I think that it's really been about looking at the complexity and looking at people as whole people and not just sort of members of one group or another group, but really looking at all the different ways that they have different meanings in their lives.
Definitely, like since first time when I came to Wayne State, especially, there wasn't a whole lot of diversity. Like I see more people, more different people from different races and all that. They come here, and with all these laws and whatever it's going on with politics and everything, there's some changes that has happened. But yeah, I think it's been changing.
As like our history shown, we weren't very tolerant before with other customs and conforming to other groups, and now I feel like our community is more tolerant to learning new customs and adapting those into their everyday life.
Personally, I think it's gotten better. There's a lot of talks about gay marriage and equal rights in the legislature lately, and there was just a vote passed a couple of weeks ago for 4 different states that now allow same-sex marriage. So I think that it's getting a lot better than it used to be. People are talking about it more now, and so I think it's got a positive light to it.
It has quite a bit of diversity. We have a lot of international students, a lot from Africa, South Sudan, Nepal. We have a group of Native students. We have just students that are involved in sports because
It's not just about the race. If you compare the racial part, there's not a whole lot of diversity here. And we have few African Americans, a few international students, and a few Hispanic population. And so, but the thing is, we all have different cultures. We all have different things that we learn throughout the time. We have been to different places. We have been to different families, and we have learned a lot. So I think we have quite a bit of diversity if you look into that aspect. But if you look into like a racial aspect, there isn't a whole lot of diversity at Wayne State College.
Here we have the Multicultural Center, and like all that comes with that is like Black Student Union, Latinos Uniting, Pride, MACT, and I mean there's other groups that I don't remember what they are, but and NASA, yeah. We need to start doing that like in younger places, like in the school, like the high schools and stuff like that, just to help with the transition, from coming to high school to college kind of thing like that.
One thing was I was raised and born in capital city in Nepal, and I came here. I came to a small town, so people waving at me and all that thing. It was not like a country change, but it was like a small town, big town change, and people waving, smiling at me, and that was kind of weird for me, and that was kind of like, okay, what do I do kind of deal,
I'm definitely from a big city, San Diego, and it's close to Mexico, so we have a lot of Mexicans. We have a lot of diversity. There's a lot of different cultures that are out there. like Pacific Islanders, Mexican, you know, Puerto Rican. We have everything. Like, we see everything in San Diego.
I've mostly traveled in the Midwest. That's mostly where I've been. And it's really, especially, I'm coming from North Dakota, which there's not very much racial diversity in North Dakota. It's very white. It's a very, very white place. And so there's not a lot of diversity, but so it's interesting. It's fun to go other places and just see lots of diversity and see different kinds of communities of people just sort of living together and interact. And I think that that's, I think that really depends on where you live. If there's more of an urban center, there's more opportunities, there's more groups, there's more places for people to express their different identities and to belong to a community. And so I think that that's why once you get outside of the Midwest and places like North Dakota, it's much easier in the big urban centers to find kind of your peeps to hang out with. I think it's just awareness. It's really about figuring out that the world is not your tiny little bubble that you live in. I was raised in a town in North Dakota called Bowbells that had 450 people. So it was really small, really homogenous. Everybody was kind of the same. And then, you know, I moved to Grand Forks and started to travel a little bit, and just, it's that eye-opening of like, oh, there are different kinds of people and they have all different kinds of customs and they don't think about things the way that I do. And that's okay, and that's great. And I want to tell you how I think about things, and I want you to tell me how you think about things. And so it's always been, I haven't had a lot of clashes. I really like to get in and just find out what people are about. So I know that sometimes there are some conflicts when people, when they get that first eye-opening, it can be kind of shocking and they can get kind of freaked out, but I've always enjoyed it.
The International Club has done the international dinner every year, where the members of the group are from different cultures and different countries, and so they make the foods that they usually eat.
Out here in the Midwest, you guys are really strict on your steak and potatoes. And in California, where I grew up, there's lots of different foods. I've had Thai, I've had Indian, I've had Guamanian food, I've had Hawaiian food, I've had any types of food. I've tried it. Like, you get so much out there.
I mean, food, that was the main thing. When I was back home, we ate a lot of rice, you know, like every day. And that was one of those trouble I had when I came here, to adjust to the food and all that. And the thing is, food is kind of tied with the culture, you know, and with the certain thing, you do certain kind of food. And with festivals and all that, you have all different kinds of food for that festival, and you get into that culture with the food if you're eating the food kind of deal. But yeah, that's kind of the thing that's kind of here. We see it during Thanksgiving, we have turkey and all that thing too, you know, but it's over there, food is very, very tied to the culture. First couple of days, I was happy to eat pizzas and whatever, you know, and after 5 days or so, man, I missed my food so bad. I missed it.
Just don't be afraid to ask questions about somebody who is different than you, because it could be really educating for you, to help you out in the future, to dispel all of the stereotypes, the negative stereotypes.
I think having programming is really important, just having people come in and talk and really just kind of fostering that sort of environment, and really just kind of trying to have events that people will go to. And I think that that's, food especially is something, I mean, that's what brings people together. That's how we celebrate holidays and festivities, is we eat, we get together. And so, you know, and students, who doesn't love a free meal? So, you know, just bring people in and like serve food and talk about it. And
the main difference was my native language is not English, so the first problem for me was to learn English. And I learned English when I was back there, but the thing is to grasp the accent and everything, that was the hard part, because to express what I was trying to say, that was the main hard trouble that I got when I got here, you know. And that made me feel like I was not from the same group and all that, and made me feel like I was a minority and I was not heard. And I think that's the most important thing with anything, like with diversity too. People need to be heard, you know. So that's what I felt when I was here, but it was not, it was just like my thinking. And as I learned how to talk and as to communicate, it wasn't a problem for me. And being a minority, the other problem, I don't see a whole lot of problem being a minority. It's like you can take it wherever way you want. It's up to you. If you want to feel bad, you can feel bad about being who you are, and then after feel like a minority and say that you don't have a lot of things. But if you believe that you are the same, I don't think that's going to matter at all with your racial color or race or whatever.